All right, folks, this is the second part of my little review of my 118 scale four-door custom RC. So we did get cut off. So this is the second part. It was kind of forced upon me because my memory on my phone kind of died out. So I had to delete a couple of stuff, make some more room. So I did leave off with the lights. This is the controller and the lights. Boom, boom. Pretty strong, pretty nice. So that's pretty cool. One of the biggest hurdles was the body itself. So spreading the body, um, uh, it was a big project to split it. It's not a huge hurdle. Keeping it in line, just reinforce it with steel brackets, and then reinforce the drive shaft, just extending it. It's just really about making the measurements of where you want the wheel wells and where you want the those axles, and keeping it as straight as possible. So I was able to achieve that. I've highlighted how I've done that before on my other videos. So, check out the other videos, some of my earlier videos of extending these bodies. It's not a real uh, genius thing to do. I mean, it's really just separating it, keeping it in line, and then reconnecting it where you want it to be. Like I said, this vehicle is very powerful for being small. It's a 120, 122, and 124. I say those scales because it has been rebranded quite a bit. It uses the same chassis, but it has a short enough wheelbase from left to right that I can use it for my 118s. That's the thing that I like. And also that inline motor that I always talk about. It has, every time that I get an inline motor for any of my RCs chassis that I use, they have speed and they have torque. And those are the things that I require in order for me to go ahead and superimpose that heavier body, a couple extra figures, the armament, and the vehicle is able to take that on. So let's highlight some of the speed here. If you can tell, hopefully keep an eye out for these wheels because of the speed. The tires actually expand, and that's kind of like a high indicator. This is not this is a brushed motor, but imagine a brushless motor in here. These tires would really expand. It's pretty good speed. Reverse is slower than forward, which is quite a right, but this vehicle does take jumps. This is a fast vehicle. It's proportional steering, proportional throttle. Pretty awesome speed. All right, we'll turn it off. So one of the biggest, another one of the biggest hurdles that I did come across was the shocks. Like I said, this vehicle is scaled down and it's smaller. So, and the body for usually for all RCs are Lexan, which is a very thin, pretty durable plastic, but it's super lightweight. So none of the shocks are actually designed to carry those extra ounces that I always impose upon the RCs, right? So I usually have to do some modifications. Some of the modifications that you are able to do with the original shocks is put spacers. So they're basically like little clamps that clamp into there, and then which basically bring down the shock. And then you put in the spacers, so you kind of shrink the shock down, which gives it a little bit more of a more resistance, right? So imagine the shock is this big originally, you put in the spacer, so you make the shock, you shrink it down, the shock, so now it has more resistance to compensate for that top weight. I was unfortunately not able to do that with the shocks. Like I said in the beginning of these videos, is that the RC itself, they do tend to save money where they can, and shocks is one of those things. Those shocks aren't too versatile. They're exactly designed for exactly the purpose of this vehicle. So there's no real wiggle room. For this custom, I had to dig into my box of shocks. I have shock absorbers for left over from other projects, so I have a box full of them. So I had to play with it. Now this is kind of where the guessing game comes into play, um, because you have to take in consideration the distance of the original shocks. So you kind of want to maintain that. You don't want to really mess with the design mechanics of this. But the only thing that you can play with is the connecting points. So as you can see here, these two connecting points, hopefully you can tell, but these two connecting points are the original connecting points, and then there's two connecting points up here. So you have just a tiny, like a millimeter or two of variation that you can do here. And you can tell that this doesn't use those two connectors, those two original connectors. It's as simple as just drilling another hole right next to it, and then using that connect as a connecting point, and that worked fairly well. It maintained the integrity of the design, and I was able to go ahead and add a shock that had a lot more resistance to it in order to compensate for that weight. I'm throwing a lot in there. I know there's a lot, but and it is a guessing game. As you can tell, these are color purple. I don't know what vehicle they came from. You know, when I throw it in the box, and when I have spare shocks, I don't label them. I just don't. It would be impractical, right? So I wish I could tell you where I got these shocks. That's one of the things. You know, I build these projects, and then I don't really know if I'm going to be able to rebuild this again the same way. Because some of these parts I'm not sure if I'm ever gonna get my hands on this. These shocks are different back here. There's a little bit more of a spring back here than it is up here. I believe these might be oil filled shocks, and they also have they don't need spacers. These actually have adjusters. So if I put more weight back here, say I put cargo boxes, you know, MRE boxes, you know, ammo cans, I can actually adjust these shocks in order to compensate for that weight. That's the nice part about this. That's why I put these back here, because they're a little bit more spongier for the landing, and also for any added weight that I might see in the back. Again, with these, hopefully you can see, these two are the original points for the connecting of the original shocks. These aren't original shocks, so I did have to make two extra shocks here, or two extra connecting points here, and I had to play with that. I had to play, and then I also shifted from the inside point of contact to the outside point of contact. I played with 3 different sets of shocks, and then I played with all these connections so I can find the exact combination. It took me a long while. It's time consuming, and sometimes it's frustrating. I put it down and walk away, but I was able to maintain that clearance that these independent suspension allows me to have, and be able to compensate for that weight. I wish I could give you a formula. I wish I could, you know, tell you where I got these shocks from, what original RC I got them from, or if you can get aftermarket, you know, shocks. But it really is kind of one of those things where you just kind of have to guesstimate, and then trial and error, and just keep at it, right? This is a commission piece, so I was kind of like, I was hoping it was going to come together, and it came together, which was sweet. I don't have to delay the build of this. I hate the idea of saying, hey, you know, it's going to be another 2 months or 3 months because, you know, I can't find the parts. So I was glad it came together. I don't have to delay the build of this. As it is, it's a long process. But if it was for me, myself, and I came across it and I couldn't fix it, you know, I have projects that I've shelved because I just can't solve the problem, or I don't have the part in hand, or I don't even know if the part exists out there. But sometimes I shelve projects for months at a time, sometimes years, because I put it away. I'm like, okay, I gotta think about that, and I move on to a different project. Like I said, super glad that it came together, and it's so bouncy. I mean, it's so cool. Like, I could just I mean, and when it drives, it has a nice little feel to it and move to it. And when it takes jumps, it's so cool. As soon as I get a chance, I'll take a video of one of the test drives so I can show you folks. All I really have to do is get that controller for the winch, modify the 250 cals, paint these shocks so they could be black, and then paint the body for black. And then I should be done. I don't really know. I don't have a time frame for that. Not too sure when it's gonna be all complete. But hopefully I can get you a video of it running around and then taking some jumps, and then just a small like walk around for it being completed. And actually it's gonna look pretty cool with it being all black. All right, folks, like always, if you have any questions, if you have any anything that you want me to cover on this vehicle, then let me know. Send me a message through the video that is in question or that you have a question about, and I'll try to answer you as quickly as possible. And if the answer to your question is complicated or more in depth that I can't, send you a message answering that, I'll make a little video for you explaining it, because chances are if you have a question about it and I haven't explained it well enough, I'm sure someone out there could also benefit from that information. All right, folks, have fun out there. Highly encourage you to try this. It's just about patience and time, and it's fun. It's absolutely and 100% fun. Sometimes frustrating, but for the most part fun, and it's nice seeing these. Hope to see you out there creating your own. Take care of each other and take care of yourselves.